Okay, everybody, welcome. We're ready to start. Good to see some older faces back in the group. A couple more people coming in person, and great to see you guys. We are holding now in, if you want to orient yourself into Rav Arush's book, we're on page 88, and we're just going to finish up a little bit from where we were last time before we begin a new section today. So the place that we're at now in the story is that the Chochom. By the way, if you're watching this from the Breslev English from Rav Arush's website, please make sure to check out our YouTube channel, Breslev Thornhill, and to subscribe and like us over there and share the shiurim around. Make sure we get them to as many people as possible in Yirtzeh Hashem. So Rav Arush says like this on page 87. The story said he started to consider with his philosophical analysis what he should do. So this is after the Chochom had first joined on the group of workers to go to Warsaw. Then he wasn't happy there right when he got there, so he decided he's going to join another group of salespeople to go to Lagorna, right? And he wanted to take on the trade of fancy clothing, pointy shoes. Remember, the job as a fancy pants guy, and and he kept changing his mind, and so he finally got to a point where he said, "Okay, I got to buckle down. It's time that now I should work towards my ultimate purpose." And he started to consider, with his philosophical analysis, what he should do. So Rav Arush points out over here that this is a continual mistake he keeps making, and a big mistake, is that he decides that, wow, I'm a smart person, and I'm moving up, so I'm going to figure out and decide what's the best thing for me to do. He didn't look for outside advice. He didn't try to clarify the truth. So what happens? This is going to be a big theme throughout this part that we're going to look at today. What happens when I don't seek advice from someone wiser than me, and when I don't try to clarify the truth of my own situation, and I don't try to speak to Hashem? I am governed by my own lusts. When I say lusts, I mean it could be physical lusts, for sure, and that can lead me down the wrong direction, but it can also be my not so physical lusts, my desires for honor, my desires for acceptance, all these things that lead us down the wrong path. There could be ego, could be fear, could be leading me down all these paths, and I'm just going. I'm just following where I'm being led, right? So although it seemed at the outset like he'd be doing productive things, like maybe learning to be a goldsmith, a gem polisher, ultimately a doctor, he just keeps going with no real direction, no real plan, and he's just looking, just following his lusts in any of these ways. So Rav Arush says something very important next time. He said in page 88 at the top, the section is titled, "Where Am I?" So I want to remind all of us who were around during the story of the lost princess. There was a very special line in that story that Ribbono Shel Olam wrote, where he says, "Heichan ani ba'olam." Remember, the viceroy at one point he found himself waking up after messing up and after sleeping for a couple years. He just woke up and said, "Where in the world am I? Heichan ani ba'olam, where am I?" Right? And over there, we spoke about a few ideas, but here we're looking at it from a slightly different way. Rav Arush says like this, that if we don't know where we are, let's say if we don't know who we are, then how do we know where we're going? How do we know how to get somebody? There's like 10 people on here. I don't know. Yeah. So I just heard that someone can't get on. I posted it on the book club one today. It's working great. Yeah, just tell her to look at the most recent one. If I don't know where I am right now, how do I know where I'm going to get? Rav Arush gives the example. If you're stuck in Chicago, and you want to get to New York, right? Sorry, if you want to get to, you're somewhere, and you want to get somewhere else. If you don't know where you're starting, I can't look on a map and say, oh, there's LA, there's New York, there's Chicago, wherever I want to go. If I don't know where I am right now, how can I get started? I can't even begin. Which way do I go? So Arush brings us down to a very, very fundamental level. What does the question mean? Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing over here? It's not so deep, or it's really deep. It's not like, who really am I? What, have I found myself yet? It's not that kind of thing. It's not that question. It's the question of, did we create ourselves? Who created us, and for what purpose? Meaning, what am I doing in this world? Why was I created? What am I doing here? How can we possibly know what path to pursue if we don't know what we're doing here in the first place? We have to understand who we are, what we're doing here, why we are here. Then I can now start to look towards the path, the map. Now I can figure out how to get to LA. I don't know why I'm using LA today, but LA is on my mind, I guess. Right? So if you go now to page 89 at the top, he says like this: Emunah is virtually the only tool whereby we can establish who we are, and where we're going. A main principle of Emunah is that the Creator has a specific purpose for every creation. In clarifying truth, I come to the conclusion that I didn't create myself, therefore I can't know on my own what's best for me. Once I acknowledge that Hashem created me, I'm now prepared to seek His purpose in creating me. Meaning, the Arizal says this, a very, very special idea. He says that every single person, every single Jew that was ever created, every single person that was ever created, has a tikkun and a yud, meaning has a rectification to effect in the world, something to elevate, has a purpose in the world. There's a purpose why we were put down here. And not only that, but everyone's purpose is different. And person X cannot do person Y's purpose. Right? Sandra cannot accomplish my purpose and I can't accomplish hers. Right? We all have a different thing that we have to accomplish in the world. And we have hints. Hashem helps us to find them. But if I don't first realize that Hashem put me here, and if Hashem put me here, and He's the master of the world, and He runs everything, and He puts everything in front of me that I'm supposed to have, and if I don't have that in mind to begin with, I can't know where I'm going. I can't make a plan to see where I'm going. And once I know this, once I know that I'm not the one who created me, I'm not the one who runs the world, now I can be open to and ready to ask for help. I can ask for advice from wise people, from big rabbis and holy people, holy tzaddikim that know more than me. I can ask them for advice. Maybe I can even just ask if I have friends who are holy. I can even speak to my friends who are holy people, and they can help to give me a perspective that I'm not able to see. But most importantly, I'm open and ready to start asking Hashem for help, and to make this the basis of everything. So if I'm not in this realm, if I don't have it, this is all centering around Emunah. I live with Emunah that Hashem put me here, that Hashem created me, and that Hashem has a tikkun for me, and a yud for me, purpose for me. And if I just align myself with Hashem, I'll be able to figure it out. But so long that I don't do that, and I'm trying to figure it out myself, it's only going after my own personal lusts. Once again, when I say lusts, I don't just mean physical lusts. I mean everywhere that I get pulled, I just keep going. And that's exactly what we see happening with the Chochom. He just goes everywhere he gets pulled. He sees something he likes and he goes there. He sees another thing he likes, he goes there, right? So he goes on to the next section, Rav Arush, on page, at the bottom of page 89 and onto the next page, talking about self-composure and the importance of taking time to step back at every stage of the game and compose oneself and think, contemplate. I just want to point out a couple things that came up into my mind when I was reading this. So first of all, self-composure means how would we usually say is a person without composure? right? They fly off the handle. They get really upset. They're just going on emotion and the heat of the moment. And what do we say to such a person? Compose yourself. I mean, I don't know if we'd say that, but that's that's one of the things you say to a person. Compose yourself. Come on, compose yourself, right? So this is how a person can be. If I'm just running through life and at every time something happens, what do? I just get upset. I get anxious. I get fearful. I get angry. I get upset. Whatever it is, right? Then I'm not composed, and when I'm not composed, I'm just flying off the handle. I'm going on the energy that's happening right now. I'm just reacting without thinking. So you can see such people in the world that are on a path and they maybe make some good decisions here and there, but then something happens and boom, it's all out the window. It's all out the window. All of a sudden, why would this happen? Why is Hashem doing this to me? Maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I shouldn't be with this person. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and going crazy, just like the Chochom in the story. Mamish, exactly just like the Chochom, right? Because I can't step back and compose myself. The Tam, and what's the main difference between the Chochom and the Tam here? Is the Chochom thinks he has to know everything and make the decisions, and the Tam just steps back and says, "Okay, what does Hashem want from me here?" In every step of the way, every step of the way. So to compose oneself, that's what it means to step back and think. I thought to myself, I know that there's a big problem with many people who are overthinkers, who think too much and get the wheels flowing, rolling, and things just roll and roll and roll and roll, and they get paralyzed, they get going down the wrong paths because they're just thinking too much. But wait a second, isn't this what Rav Arush is saying? Don't just act. Stop and think. Stop and think and compose yourself, and then you can move forward. So which one is it? Right? Do I want to just live in the now? We've been saying this all along. I got to live in the now. Or do I need to pause and contemplate where the now is going to take me? How do I make sense of this? What's the story? So I'm hearing people say something about balance, which is of course very important and probably the best thing to think about in this situation. But just a couple of points that I think shed light on this that might help us out a little bit that I was thinking about. So first of all, tell me what you think about this. I think there's a difference in thinking about the future, planning for the future, but also living in that future and being completely in that future, as opposed to thinking about the future from within the consciousness of the present. Do you hear what I'm saying? Totally different. In other words, if I'm in the present moment and I'm contemplating now, what is Ratzon Hashem for me right now? What can I do in this current situation that's going to, right now, what can I do? What's my decision right now? And as long as I ground myself in that type of thought, now maybe I can follow it through and be like, okay, if I do this now, then, and what I think is Ratzon Hashem now, where's it going to lead me? What's it going to do for me? Why should I want to do it? Then I can go forward. But if I'm completely encapsulated within just the future, right? And I'm not really remembering that the time to serve Hashem is now, and I'm just kind of following through to see where it's going to take me, it's two very different pathways. You hear the difference? So, a person can get very wrapped up in like, is this the right path? Is this the right path for me? Is this something that I should be doing? And where's it going to take me? Where is it going to end up? If I do this, then if I marry this person, right? Then wow, what if they end up, what's going to be when we get in an argument? What will be? What if they have a midah that I don't, that's not so great? What if after a few years their appearance changes and I'm no longer attracted to them? What if after a while the relationship gets stale, and then how's it going to be? How are we going to deal with that? What if we have disagreements about money? What if we have disagreements? Okay, these are things to have on the person's mind and to sort of think about. But if I'm only in that space and I'm not looking at the person right in front of me, I'm not looking at my partner right in front of me today. Okay, what can I do today to have a good partnership? What can I do today to work together? Okay, what's going to be in the future? All right, well, we'll see. So many people, like Rav Arush said in one of his other books, that it's possible that Hashem puts you sitting down in front of your soulmate and you decide that you know better. And you, quoting Rav Chaim Kanievsky, by the way, in this. And what did you do? Okay, don't worry. Hashem will figure it out. It'll work out. Right? But it's possible. Am I here right now? Am I saying, I need to be married now? I need to have a job now? I need to just be where I am? Or have I thought through the consequences to such an extent that I can't actually do anything now because I'm so worried about what's going to be? So there's a very big difference between thinking about the consequences of something, where it's taking me, from a place of now, and just being in the realm of those consequences of the future. Very, very big difference. I hope we can understand. Maybe either by the end of the lesson today, or maybe next time we'll think of a good mashal for this. We'll see. But that's one of the aspects. So the next thing that he says, that Rav Arush says over here, if you go to page 90. Before we get there, just there was 2 points. 2 points about self-composure. The first point of self-composure is that my thinking now about what I'm going to do in the future, of where this is going to take me in the future, has to be grounded in the now. It's something I think very important. The second thing is it always has to be that I'm seeking truth, as opposed to just following my own personal form of guidance, which could be coming from anywhere, right? It could be coming from a physical desire. It could be coming from a desire for honor, ego, fear. It could be coming from something that I saw looking at one of the shtusi videos that I watched, and it's making me think that I should do this, right? Who knows where it's coming from, right? If it's not grounded in the truth of emunah, then it's also, the self-composure is not going to help me. So to sit back, pause, and think, what does the Ribbono Shel Olam want from me? What is Ratzon Hashem now? Hashem put me here for a purpose. What's my purpose? What am I doing? How am I going to get there? Now I can think, okay, what am I going to do now, and where's it going to take me? In those two ways. So a good segue. The next thing the Rav Arush says is the title is "There's Only One Truth." Happens to be that anyone who's studied Rabbi Nachman's deeper writings on the topic of truth will know that this is not so simple, what he's saying over here. But nonetheless, let's try to understand what Rav Arush is trying to tell us over here. Basically, the concept is like this. We all, at different points, it's the same thing we've been saying, by the way. We all, at different points in our lives, have something which is what we'll call our truth, which is the way that we see things. I got it figured out. This person's wrong. This whole thing is wrong. This is the way it should be. And that's my truth. Right? So this is the type of thing that creates, this is in Torah, I believe, in Torah, Nun, I think it's Nun Vav, maybe, in the Likutei Moharan. This is the source of all machlokes, of all arguments and fighting. Why? Because we each come from a place of our own individual truth, quote unquote, right? And even if we really think it's the truth, we think we're right. And so what happens? Two people with two differing views of what's truth, they clash. They create a fight and a machlokes. And right? Just imagine everything that's going on in the world. He says over here, top of 91, there's so much discord because everyone is pursuing his own truth without trying to establish absolute truth. All these truths are nothing but lies. The prerequisite to finding absolute truth is first deciding to stop living the lie of our own truth and stop fooling ourselves with it. So for me, Arush says, someone who really believes what they're doing is the truth, who knows what such a person will do, right? People will steal, will kill. Who knows what who knows what they'll do? When you really think you got the truth on your side, there's a famous statement that there's two different types of machlokes, right? And Pirkei Avos says this, and says that a machlokes that is not l'shem shemayim, meaning a machlokes, an argument that is not for the purpose of heaven, soifa in the end, shaloi leheskayim, it's not going to endure. It's meaning it's not as strong, it's not a good machlokes, or it's not going to last. And on the other hand, a machlokes that is l'shem shemayim, that's for the purpose of heaven, like the machlokes between Hillel and Shammai, right? Soifa leheskayim. That machlokes can endure. Meaning, the simple understanding of it is that it has something to stand on, right? It's something that will come to fruition, right? However, there's another way to learn this. I heard this from Rabbi Pesach Kron many years ago. He said, a machlokes that's l'shem shemayim, meaning when a person thinks, oh, I'm doing this l'shem shemayim, I am a righteous person, and I am not. It's not selfish. I'm doing this because I know it's the right thing, right? I have my own truth, and I believe in it. So he says, such a machlokes, soifa leheskayim, it's never going to end. It's going to continue to endure. That machlokes will go on forever. Why? Because I think that it's that I'm right and I have heaven behind me. Who knows where I could go? So a person, together, one of the main ingredients there has to be over here, he doesn't actually say it here, but it seems very obvious to me on page 91, is that in order for a person to deal with the realm of truth and to try and find what he's calling over here absolute truth, let's call it Hashem's truth, a person has to have humility. We have to have humility. And we have to be able to step back and to say, okay, I don't know. I'm going to try my best. Right? And to not get too powerful, not act, hopefully we don't get in situations where we have to act in a very strong way on a truth that we're not sure about. Right? But to always be honest with ourselves, always be humble. Maybe I don't know exactly. Maybe I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I don't have all the facts. Maybe I should speak to someone who maybe is a little wiser than me, who can give me advice. Maybe, like what's the famous Breslev slogan? If you have something that you can't figure out the answer to, take it to the forest. Go and spend time. Talk to Hashem for hours about it. How many people spend hours contemplating something before they get into an argument? How many people talk to Hashem for hours before putting themselves into a dispute? Right? Imagine if a person did that. You'd go in with a totally different energy, a totally different ability to exist within that dispute. Wow, that's powerful. I think so. So in the Torah of Rabbi Nachman in Yiddish, he said there's such a thing as emes and emes or emes, which is in the Hebrew translation is usually there's emes and emes la'amiti, emes la'amito. Absolute truth of truth, right? So we all have our different perspectives, and we all see things in a different way, and so therefore, Hashem sees everything. So, just one more important, I think, just piece of personal musar I'll give to myself over here, and you guys can share in it if you want, is that it's usually not worth it to hold strong to an opinion and insert yourself into a dispute. It's almost never worth it. It almost never is positive, right? They say about Rabbi Nachman that this was one of his traits. I've heard this about many tzaddikim, by the way, is that he wouldn't push people to do anything. He wouldn't even push things to happen. Like if he wanted something to happen, he wouldn't push. Why? I think it comes from this place also. I don't want to insert myself too strongly into something when it's so much, who knows? I know I have my own perspective and the other person has their own perspective. You ever, I think we talked about this before, right? But you know, like if an alien came down, where they didn't have proper type, they didn't have the same form of reproduction that we have, right? And this alien walks into a hospital room where there's a woman giving birth, right? And he sees what's going on in there, and you know they're screaming, and she's freaking out, and there's blood, and there's and people are running around, and there's things beeping and everything, and he'd walk in and he'd be like, oh my gosh, they're killing her, what are they doing over here, right? And he would, if he didn't step back and I'm talking about an alien, but if the alien in the story didn't step back and compose himself and think about and maybe speak to Hashem a little bit, aliens can speak to Hashem too. Why not? Right? Then he who knows what he would do? He might kill the doctor. How dare you? I'm saving the woman. Right? That's his perspective. That's where he sees the truth. Meanwhile, the doctor, the husband, the lady, they're sitting there. And they're in this amazing moment, and they wouldn't change anything, right? So that perspective, and they could both think they're completely right in what's going on, right? I know it's a wild example, but earthly examples exist also. Yeah. So this is something to think about. If we don't put ourselves on the path of trying to get ourselves, I don't like this Indian of absolute truth, by the way, and attaching to it so much, because it's a little absolute, and it also, in my mind, it a little bit takes away from a person's ability to live with a truth that is important to them and that they've developed, maybe with Hashem together. Okay, I don't have Hashem's vision. But you know, I have a truth that I've really worked on and developed in a humble, connected to Hashem type of way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we have to be humble about it, though. That's I think the main thing. But if we don't try and always anchor our truth with the truth of Hashem, with His deep truth, then once again we're led through life by just our urges, by just our lusts and our fears and our desires. That's what leads us through life. So he says over here, lower down on page 91, he says that you know the body's urges and appetites are so strong that they taint the truth. So imagine if you have, he says, how many overweight people continue to endanger their health by indulging in excessive and unhealthy eating. Ask them if they want a heart attack, and they'll answer emphatically no. Yet they're going to keep going and keep eating, keep in the unhealthy habits. You could have someone who has high blood pressure, but they keep with, you know, the salty French fries all the time, and it doesn't. Things just keep going up and up. So our urges, our desires, everything pulls us along in these ways, even though we know theoretically what the truth is. It's just another example of an individual truth that just gets pulled whichever way the world pulls me, versus the absolute truth of Hashem. So once again, we can develop, I'm saying something not like he's saying, we can develop a healthy connection to the truth of Hashem, which in some ways might be our own truth, right? Through just making sure that we always try to look for truth in a humble way and in a connected to Hashem way. And with those ingredients, humility, and always putting Hashem in the picture. Humility and emunah. That's a way that we can develop some type of tangible working level of high level truth. You know what I'm saying? All right. So he goes. Let's go a little bit farther, and then we'll move over to Rav Kivak a little bit. So he found it appealing to learn the trade of a goldsmith. It is an important trade and attractive. It demands wisdom and is also very profitable. So Rav Arush says right away, he's like, what? Attractive and profitable? That is exactly what we just said. It's strictly chasing after lusts. This is something that is attractive. Oh, and it's going to give me money. Let's do it. He didn't stop for 1 second to think about, what am I doing in this world? Is this going to put me on the right path? Is this leading me towards my purpose? What am I going to do as a goldsmith. How is that furthering my purpose, the purpose of my existence? Right? He didn't think for this 1 second. What? It's attractive, and money. That's all he thought about. How many people has attraction and money put in the ground? How many people has that pulled down? How many politicians? How many celebrities? How many normal people how many marriages have been ruined because of attraction and money? We keep saying this. This is, by the way, we were talking about this in the Wednesday night class, right? With the Taivas Mammon together with Shmiras Habris and Avodah Zarah, the whole thing. It's all one thing. How many? It's terrible. So this is all he said. Since he was a highly intelligent and a philosopher, he did not need to learn the trade for several years. In only a quarter of a year, he mastered the trade and became a distinguished artisan, more expert in the trade than the one who had taught him. So it usually takes a long time to become a goldsmith, apparently. And remember, the Chochom had real serious talent. He was a very talented person. So he learned it very quickly in a fraction of the time that most people learn it in. Not only that, the student became the teacher in such a short time. He became on a higher level than the one who taught him. So this is where he found himself. So we see, Rav said, he had enormous, amazing potential. Imagine what he could have done if just right now, he sat down and started to be like the Tam. Even if I learn, on page 93, even if I earn enormous sums of money, will this satisfy my soul? He should have asked himself. Why did the Creator give me such talents? Is my purpose in life to make a prettier pendant for the Queen of Spain, and the one that the Queen of England dons? Rather, the fact that he was successful, he didn't stop to think, what am I doing here? Why do I have these talents? What am I supposed to do with them? Rather, he allows his success of becoming an amazing goldsmith. He leaves it in 5 seconds. Afterwards, he contemplated. Even though I now have this skill to depend on, even so, it is not enough for me. Today, this trade is in demand. Perhaps in the future, a different skilled trade will be more highly regarded. And he goes to become a precious gem cutter. Gemologist, maybe? I don't know. Right? In the Yiddish, originally Yiddish, he becomes a Steinschneider, a stone cutter, right? A precious gem cutter, Steinschneider. So, once again, page 94. Arush says, those fortunate people who focus on their true goal in life are always happy. However, to find our true goal, the very purpose that the Creator created each of us to fulfill, we must also get to know the Creator. To get to know the Creator, we must establish an intimate personal relationship with Him by speaking to Him daily in personal prayer. And then we're gonna exist in this realm a little bit farther down. Everything that happens to us in life is a precision, divinely oriented stimulus intended to facilitate our tikkun, our soul correction, and mission in life. Realizing that Hashem is doing everything for our ultimate benefit, whether we understand how or not, enables us to be sincerely happy with our lot in life. Meaning like this. It's very easy for a person to not be happy with what's going on in their life when they are not connected to a purpose. When what they're doing in general is not connected to a purpose. Now that could be any person. I have an example in my mind that you can have a person who is a really good person, very good parent, and cares tremendously about his family, about his community, studies Torah, right? Goes to shul, takes care of his kids, does everything. But the person does not make $1 million a year. They just are able to get by. And this person is the most unhappy person in the world. Is there food on the table? Every day. Nice food on Shabbos. Do they have a car? They have 2. Are their kids able to go to activities and be in a good school? Absolutely. But the person can't take it. Can't take it. Because he's not making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year. He can't stand it. What am I even doing here? What does God want from me? Right? What do you mean, what does God want? Hold on a second. What are you here for? Are you building an amazing family? Are you and your wife creating holiness together? Are you raising children up to be Ovdei Hashem? You're feeding them. You're helping the community. You're learning. You're doing mitzvahs. What are you here for? What's your lot in life? What's your purpose here? Does your purpose only get reached when the bank account reaches 500,000 every year? Is that what it has to be? And if you don't do that, you didn't fulfill your purpose? I'm not saying about anyone in specific what their purpose is and what Hashem has plans for them, because I don't know. That's for each person to work on to figure out, right? But it's an example of the type of person who can just be miserable their whole life because of this. I know of another situation where there was a lady who was getting older, and her husband passed away, and so she was alone in the house. And she went through a year of being super upset, super angry, and unhappy all the time because she's alone in the house. If only her daughter would move in with her, then she'd be happy. Turns out this woman was never happy for a day in her life. But if only my daughter would move in with me, then I just won't be alone. Then I'll be happy. So this woman was happy for maybe not even a week, until she started finding everything else to be upset about. Right? Why? Because she has no connection to a purpose in life. No reason to exist. No understanding of why she's here. So there's always something wrong. There's never, right? Mashenken, someone who has a connection to purpose, right? They can be in a place, and they can move to a place. Okay, it's maybe not exactly what I thought, but there's a shul here. Okay, good. I'll go meet some people. Oh, it's not like the place where I used to be, where they had energy and they had classes and everything. Okay, but here I am right now. And maybe Hashem wants me to be part of this shul and help it. Maybe Hashem wants me to, people have a very specific idea of who they're supposed to get married to, and what they're supposed to look like, and what they're supposed to accomplish, and what their financial level is supposed to be, and what their family history is, and every detail you can imagine. It's a sickness to think this way, right? Maybe I'm supposed to marry this person who I was introduced to, that I found a couple things I didn't like about them, and now what? Maybe that was what I was supposed to do, just to be like, okay, Hashem, I'm gonna marry this person. Okay, they have that. We'll see what we can do. We'll try to work with it. Everyone who gets married and is married for a long time knows that you find out many more things that you're not overly happy about after being married for a long time than you knew when you first met. That perfect person who does everything perfectly does not exist. Okay, you with me, guys? So there's a lot more Rav Arush over here. Where are we getting? Let's move over now. We'll come back to the next section in Rav Arush on page 94 is why worry. Let's move over to Rav Kivak for a little bit to talk about the inyan of the goldsmith in Rav Kivak's way. So he says like this: Rabbi Nachman goes into a discussion over here, telling us about the career of being a goldsmith. What's the idea over here? It's a great type of job, and it's a wealthy, what's it called? Field, right? So, why is he bringing goldsmith? Let's sarif, as someone who forges, purifies and forges gold. What's the idea over here? So he says, Kibemes hatam. The tam, what's the tam doing this whole time? Hu tzarif de kedusha. He is someone who's constantly forging and purifying in holiness. Sha'oisek la'aved uletzarif es gufo. He's always working to fix and to forge his own body. V'chein oisek betachlis avodas ha'adam b'olam haz. He's working on the main purpose of a person in this world, which is what? Letzarif betziruf acher tziruf. As kol achein sheyesh b'bria, to rectify and to forge and to purify time and again all of the charm, the grace, the chein that's in this world. Ulagalos boy chen de kedusha, and to reveal within it all the chen, the beauty and charm of holiness in the world. Shebezeh his galus hachen yecholin bakal lachzir l'sharashay. Through this type of revealing of spiritual beauty in the world, it's very easy for a person to return to their root. Lizkar ha'amuna she'Hashem yisbarach asa hazaha v'shar divrei chen. To remember that Hashem created all the gold in the world and all the other things of chen, of beauty and charm in the world. They come from Hashem. And he goes on to say there's also, on a deeper level, there's 7 different types of gold which correspond to the 7 gevuros, stringencies of all the 7 character traits, the 7 midas of Kabbalah. And this is the avoid of him. This is why Rabbi Nachman specifically used the goldsmith as his example over here. Shazav, who inyan, listen to this. This is gorgeous. Shazav, who inyan naki shenivra kamoishahu betoich sigin upesailas umetzarfin esay zichu chachar zichu. Because gold is something that is created as gold within the world, in the dirt. It's surrounded by impurities. It's stuck together with other kinds of rocks and dirt. And it has to be forged and purified over and over again. Ad sheniskala hape'er v'achin, until the beauty and the splendor of this gold becomes revealed. Shazehu hachiluk sheyesh ben ir lakfar. He says also, listen to this. What a beautiful metaphor to understand this. This is the difference between a big city and a small town. Shebakfar, roin ilana suprachim. In a small town, you see trees and you see flowers sprouting. Shemayim v'aretz, you could see the sky. You could see you ever seen the difference between the night sky when you're out in a small town compared to in the city? You think you're on a different planet. Namish. Behemoths, you see cows, you see chickens running around. Shekol Elohem berurim shenivraim kain kamay Hashem yisbarach baram. Everything you see over there, I've spoken about this before. I'm very happy to see it over here. When you're out there, more connected to nature, you're looking at everything just the way Hashem made it. It's like as if Hashem put all these things right in front of you, just for you, right? Very different. Asher baruam bilvad, asher barosim bilvad, yachol atam bakal liskar asher shebechal. When you see these things, this is where the Tom stayed, by the way, in the small town. When you see beautiful trees and mountains and rivers, and you see animals, you see flowers and just natural things, it's so much easier to be connected to our shorish, to our root, because it comes directly from there, right? It's just the way it is. The wind blowing. It's like Rabbi Nachman says in other places that when the wind blows through the grasses, it's as if Hashem is. Who blew the wind? Right? No one else is making wind. Hashem's blowing the wind. It's as if Hashem is talking to you through the wind blowing through the trees and making these sounds. It's mamish, so much easier to be connected to Hashem in such a situation. Mashen ken be'ir, not like in the city. Most of the things we see are man-made. Everything. Asphalt bakvish, whether it's the asphalt on the street, the streets are made by man. And stores that are filled with what? Chen shal sheker. You know, we say in Eishes Chayil every Friday, right? When we sing Eishes Chayil, sheker hachen vehevel hayafi. Right. So sheker hachen means that this type of charm, it's false charm and beauty. It's just surface level. What's the word for that? Superficial beauty. And you're walking through the city, nobody's thinking, who made all this? We're so much farther from the roots that we're not reminded and to think about. Oh, wait a minute, like he's doing with the gold over here. Who really made the gold? Who made the gold? That's not what anybody's thinking. They're thinking, wow, this artist, he's such a good artist, and look how beautiful this is. That would look so nice on me with this dress and with that, whatever. And that gold watch would look so nice with my fancy suit and fancy pants and pointy shoes, right? It would all go so nicely together, right? Who's looking in the jewelry store, right? This is like a home assignment for us all to do. Who goes into the jewelry store and says, whoa, look what Hashem put in the world. Hashem created gold. Hashem created diamonds. Unbelievable, amazing, right? And not buy anything. Just look at the wonders of the creation in the jewelry store. Who does that? We don't. Look at the architecture downtown. Like, we're walking through the city. You're like, wow, this is amazing. Who thinks for a second Hashem put such a spirit into man that they could craft such buildings, they could build such amazing things, right? Because nothing is built for the kavod of Hashem, and we can forget about Hashem in such a situation. He says, Ki haragilus hu lachshav miyad al ma'aseh bnei adam, because the normal way of looking at these things is to think about the handiwork of people. Shebezeh nishkach hashirish, and through that we forget the root, where it came from. Pardon me. V'zeu she'achacham shachach lishol. This is what the Chochom forgot to ask. Mi hu zeh melech hazav. Who is the king of the gold? Who made the gold? He went into this business just to continue, listen to these words, just to build on more to the chen hasheker, to the false beauty in the world. To add on more coarse physicality and materialism onto the already apparent concealment of Hashem in the world. It's like he's contributing and further concealing Hashem in the world by the way that he's approaching this job. Right? So this is why Rabbi Nachman used specifically the goldsmith over here to teach us this. So if I know we've said this many times, we've had this a lot in The Lost Princess. And this idea that you see gold in the world, and when you pull it out of the mountain, or you mine it from wherever you mine it, you gotta go. It's got dirt in it. It's got all this kind of stuff. You gotta break it down. You gotta burn it. You gotta melt it down to nothing and scrape off all the impurities. And then you're left with beautiful gold. Then you gotta polish it. You gotta form it. You gotta make it, polish it, do all this work to it to make it shine, to make it become a pe'er. We are called pe'er. The Jewish people are called pe'er. Yisrael, the pasuk says, Yisrael asher b'cha es pa'er, says Hashem. It's Yisrael through which I will be adorned, using the word pe'er. This is our job, is to turn ourselves into and help each other to become beautiful, shining pieces of gold. Really, it's gemstones. We could become so precious, but you know what we have to do to that? We gotta chip away at the dirt. We gotta sometimes break ourselves into pieces, and then we gotta mamish melt ourselves down. We gotta work, and it has to go time and time. There's a lot of steps. Then we gotta make sure we're forming ourselves the right way. We gotta polish ourselves. We gotta go through all these things, and then we can become a real pe'er. This is what the Tam is doing the whole time that the Chochom is doing this. He is turning himself into beauty and splendor of the sweetest, most amazing, humble, spiritual way. And the Chochom is just adding on to the Gashmias and the illusion of beauty in the world. Wow. Okay, a little bit more. So then he thought to himself, right? He wanted to move on and become a stone cutter. So Rav Kivak says like this: Kivan shaloi haya roitze lichyos as a chayim shaloi rak haya doyeg kol hazman al ha'acharkach. Just like we said, the Chochom does not want to just live his life. Period. He doesn't want to just live his life now. Rather, he's always worried about the acharkach. He's always worried about what's going to be afterwards. He doesn't put his attention to, he doesn't put his energy into living his life right now. He's not happy with his lot. He's always thinking to himself, what's going to be chashiv, what's going to be important, what's going to be exciting, what's going to be amazing in the coming times, in the future, not now. He says, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Ma'orer Rosanu, Rabbi Nachman, is trying to awaken us and arouse us with this, Lachshav b'chol eis, ala tachlis shal achshav. At every moment to be thinking about what's the purpose of now. What's the purpose of now? Even if it's hard work. Lolis atzel, v'lachapes, and yanim achrim, not to get lazy and to think about what else can I be doing. Right? And he says like this. This is a little bit complicated. A little tiny bit of Kabbalah, and then we'll wrap up with some Rav Arush also. He says the inyan of this guy being a stone cutter, a liter shavanim atoyves margles, is coming from the shorish, the root of this idea of chen. Okay, so chen is sometimes translated as charm, sometimes translated as grace, sometimes translated as beauty. It means a very, very fine type of beauty and type of presence that is very desirable, right? So a person who has a lot of chen, when do we have? This is when one of the Rebbe Nachman Torahs. I think we learned it together relatively recently. Anyway, a person with a lot of chen, it's Torah Aleph, the first Torah in Likutei Moharan, is a person that you're drawn to, and that like you want to be with this person, you want to listen to this person, you want to help this person, right? You want to do whatever you can to be on the same team as this person, because they have just something special that really draws a person in, and the chen of a person is something that's very spiritual and special, and it's the whole key to the first lesson in Likutei Moharan that you should go back and listen to. but that's another story. So there's the real chen, which is someone who has developed themselves to such a spiritual level that they draw people in, right? The spoiler alert for those who are going to go back and learn Torah Aleph again. The Kitzur version of it is that we empty ourselves out of all our garbage. We lose all of our negative self-attributes and our egos and our angers and everything. We throw everything out, and we always look for the wisdom of Hashem everywhere. It's the story, basically. And because of that, we make ourselves into an open vessel. I have room, I have space, that now I can become a conduit for the wisdom of Hashem to flow through me. And when a person does that, that's what happens. The high level spiritual wisdom of Hashem flows through this person, and then it's obvious. Mashen Kain, if I'm filled up with my garbage all the time, and all of my personal desires and lusts and you know, it's the Chochom and Tam, really. Then there's no room anywhere for Hashem's wisdom to come in. There's no room for light, for the Kabbalistic light to come down into me from above. So everyone just sees my garbage, and nobody wants to talk to me, right? That's the difference between these two things. So chen, in a spiritual sense, is this, but there's chen in the world also. So there's good chen and bad chen. So he says the word even, which means stone, is the gematria ban, which is 52. So this is a gematria, just so we see where he's going with this. As we all have, we've talked about this before in different classes, but the name of Hashem, that we say Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke, right? So there's these ways that's called in Kabbalah Miluyim, where it can be expanded, this name. So for example, you can take the letter Yud, and now you spell out the letter Yud. How do you spell Yud? Yud Vav Daled spells Yud, right? So Yud is always spelled that way. So now it's 3 letters, and it adds on to the length of the name, and it adds on to the gematria of the name. You take the next letter of Yud Ke Vav Ke, Hey. Now you could spell this 3 ways. You could spell it Hey Yud, Hey Aleph, or Hey Hey. So too, you move on to the next one. Vav is Vav Yud Vav, or you could spell it Vav Aleph Vav, and go to the last Hey, and once again that could be spelled 3 different ways. So there's 4 different names of Hashem in the Kabbalistic world that start out as Yud Ke Vav Ke and get expanded into a different form, and they all have 4 different gematrias. One of them, which is the lowest of them all, level of them all, is called the name of Ban, and it's also called the name of doubling. Because why? Because you have the Yud spelled regularly, but then each of the other letters is just spelled as double. So Hey is Hey Hey, Vav is Vav Vav, and hey is hey hey, right? So the gematria of this one is 52, which is ban. Can you agree with me on that? It's the name of doubles of Hashem. Then the word Evan for stone, this guy becomes a stone cutter, is the exact same gematria as this name of Hashem, ban, with the koilel, with one extra. Why? What's the idea? So this name of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, like this, it's called that the Ois Yosea kafulos. Its letters are doubled, kaful. They're doubled. Why? What does that mean? Because this Shem Hakadosh Evan, it's one of the holy names of Hashem, Evan. Ba lagalos lanu es pe'er ve'yofi avanim atoivos. It comes to teach us, to reveal for us the tremendous beauty and splendor of precious stones. Tachlis ha'pe'er, Hashem mispar banu lamata u'lamala. It's the absolute highest level of splendor that can be attributed to Hashem in the world, above and below. When we can turn ourselves into these types of polished, beautiful, precious stones. Shebezeh nivne hagan eden shel kol echad. That this is how every person builds an aspect of Gan Eden in the world. An aspect of Gan Eden. What is called the place in the world that's the doorway to Gan Eden, right, is the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, the tomb of the patriarchs, right? And in the tomb of the patriarchs is the place. Why is it called the Machpelah? Machpelah means the tomb of doubles, pairs. That's where the pairs of Adam and Chava are, Avram and Sarah, and Yitzchak and Rivka, and Yaakov and Leah. Just like this name of Hashem is the name of doubles, it represents, in a certain sense, the entrance to Gan Eden, which is the place of doubles. And so, this word Evan, he became a stone cutter. It's an opportunity. If someone uses this conceptual idea of precious stones, of shining, beautiful, amazing, precious gems in the world, you can use it in a way where you reveal that splendor of Hashem in the world, right? By turning yourself into a precious gem, by seeing other people as precious gems, by seeing the root of beauty in the world and attributing it to Hashem. It's all revealing the splendor and the beauty and the precious gemness of Hashem in the world, right? This was his opportunity. This is where he could have gone if he would have approached this job like the Tam. Instead, it just became another stop on his road to self-fulfillment, to finding Sheker HaChein, Hevel HaYofi, to find the false beauty in the world, just to follow his lusts and his hearts, and to try and make something beautiful so he can show everybody how great he is. So he can become the top of his field and be appreciated and loved by everybody. It's ego and self-aggrandizement and everything the opposite of the holy way of doing things, right? So this really represents exactly the difference between the two. Am I taking everything that I can do in the world, whatever my job is, whatever my path is, whatever my career is, whatever my relationships are, and am I using them as a way, am I just trying, simple, push it, to reveal more of the beauty of Hashem in the world? Or am I using it to elevate myself and my own ego? My own, right? This is very sweet. Very, very, very sweet Torah over here. So, you know what? Maybe we'll hold it there because we're at 58 minutes now. Let's hold it there, and we'll start next week in Mitzvah Shem with the inyan of worry in Rav Arush's book, and we'll continue on. Shkoyach, everybody. Any questions or comments or additions? Anything from anybody? What do you got, Sandra? Well, you're saying something pretty important because what you're saying is that Sandra's saying, for those of you who didn't maybe hear, is that she found that during COVID, when there were a lot of differing opinions about what to do, some families were torn apart. Yes mask, no mask. Yes vaccine, no vaccine. Right? So she said that she had her own truth and that she followed, and other people had their truth. But the way she did it was by saying, I have this is my own truth, and I'm not going to fight against you. I'm accepting that you have your own truth also. So that what you're saying seems to be like you really included one of those most important ingredients that we talked about in that aspect of truth, which is the humility, which is acknowledging that I don't know everything. I'm not telling you that this is for sure 100% the right way, although maybe we should have sometimes. But rather, I'm saying that listen, this is what I think, this is what I have to do, and I'm not claiming to know the entire universe. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. At least in that situation, you have some truth. And as long as you put Hashem into there also, Hashem and Emunah into there, you're on the right path, right?
You also have to be prepared to allow people to walk away or to, forgot to pluck them out of your life if need be, because not everyone's going to agree with you, even when you're agreeing to disagree.
Yeah. Because
you can't force them, and even in your own ways, whether it's in business or in whatever, you have to be true to yourself and follow your gut instinct, and obviously consult with your local person if you need to, but
and your Hashem.
But be prepared for the consequences that not everyone is going to want to be there.
It's okay. That's allowing Hashem to.
Right, exactly.
If you remember, we had this in the Torah not too long ago, where we brought in the concept that you have to attach yira and din into your pathway. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to say, you have to use the midah of din in a positive way, of judgment in saying, you know what, I have to cut this out of my life. There's something that is not right for me. It's not good for me. It's hurting me. It's taking me down the wrong path, and I have to cut that out. But once again, as long as the main point that we're trying to work with over here, and it goes together, is that when I'm trying to figure these things out, I have those 2, maybe 3 ingredients, which are I have to be humble. First of all, I have to be humble. I'm willing to be wrong, right? I don't know everything, and I want to try to do my best to do the right thing. I'm seeking advice from those people who are maybe have more wisdom than me in this area, right? And most importantly, before I go and get in that argument and get in that situation, I'm spending hours talking to Hashem about it and composing myself in that way. What a different existence. So I hear what you're saying, Alter. So the story, I'll tell you something about Rav Shimon Bar Yochai that is going to come out the opposite. First of all, the story is that he came out of the cave and he saw people preparing for Shabbos, and that they were gathering stuff to do for Shabbos, and the way that story is properly understood is that he was on such a high level, he was so connected to spirituality and the Kabbalah that he was just revealing in the world, that he couldn't fathom how people could be doing simple physical acts. And he would look at them, and they would burst into flames. Hashem told him, a voice came down from Shemayim and said, "This is not what I want." Hashem said, "This is not what I want. I didn't create the world so that people should burn up. People are supposed to be preparing for Shabbos and doing all these things." That's when he had to go back into the cave, not because he had a negative vision of the future. And then later on, it happens to be that the sages of the Talmud of the Sanhedrin were worried, and they were upset that they thought that the Torah was going to be forgotten. The way things were going with the persecution and the oppression of the Romans, and they said, "Asida Torah lishtakach." The Torah is going to be forgotten. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai stood up and said, "No, not a chance. Kiloi sishakach mi pizara. It's not going to be forgotten from our children's lips. It won't happen." He actually saw the future with the most positivity, and it's through that he says many times in the Zohar HaKadosh that it's through the Torah of the Zohar HaKadosh that the ultimate redemption will come, through Rabbi Shimon's writings, that the ultimate redemption will come.
So how does that reflect what you were saying? Is that the same thing, or that's a different?
Yeah, he was absolutely looking for holiness only and goodness in the world. He was the one who said, "No, don't worry. Everything's going to be fine." He had to learn. And Hashem had to tell him, you need some more time in the cave. You haven't quite got there yet, which is okay, right? But he was the one who had a beautiful vision of the future. One of the ways, by the way, the best way to understand this, in my opinion, that some people learn this, is to say that when it says in the Zohar Kadosh that through this sefer is going to be the ultimate geula, the geula is going to come, is to say that it's not even necessarily talking about the future geula, Mashiach coming, and the end of days happening, but rather that when we have the Torah of the Zohar Kadosh, which comes down, in all the Sfarim we learn in Rabbi Nachman, through that we can experience geula now, even when we're in the difficult gullus, the holy Torah of the Zohar, and the way it came down through all the students and through Rabbi Nachman and the Baal Shem Tov and all of the Chassidish writings, is that it gives us, even now when we're in difficult times, it gives us that little bit of geula. It allows us to have some redemption and some geula even in our difficult lives. That's really the panemiistic way to see Reb Shimon and all of his existence. Okay, Chevra, I think we'll hold it there. Thank you everybody for joining again. Mirz Hashem, we'll see you on next week on Monday. We'll continue where we left off. All the best.